capitalist businessman, and I'm always on time or within budget. And I'm going to hold on to the same thing here. Affirmative action, the Proposition 209 in affirmative action is a race-based management program to keep, actually it's made to keep white women in power in the school because it allows them to take over the racial discrimination project. It was written, and as the data here said, it was introduced in 1976 by Nixon in the first, and then of course President Johnson, after King was assassinated, not in the 60s. Affirmative action didn't come about until the early mid-70s. And it is a race-based program designed to give black folks primarily another seat in the back of the bus.
Mr. Driver, you have 2 minutes.
Affirmative action programs are desegregation programs. They're programs to make equal what has been unequal in the history of this nation. Affirmative action programs began in 1965 when Lyndon Johnson spoke at Howard University and made clear it wasn't enough to have formal equality, to just give people the right to vote. You actually had to take positive, conscious actions to redress the inequality that existed in society and to move things forward. At that time, and it's still true today, Johnson understood that if you had a state, like the state of California, that is now a majority-minority state, but you deny access to universities to black and Latino students, you would reinforce a race-caste system in the state, create a kind of legal apartheid in the state, maintain a situation which was bound to be socially explosive, and it was in the 60s, and it will be again, because we're not going to accept back of the bus, second-class treatments under the guise that there's some method of formal equality that's being used to provide for opportunity in this state, which is a fiction.
Whole speech here, folks, but I'm not going to discuss that. By the way, my whole speech here, gee whiz, I don't see the word affirmative action anywhere, and I'm sure I'll find it somewhere. The bottom line, folks, racism exists in this country. Every black man here should have a lawyer's phone number in his pocket. I understand that. I understand that racism and discrimination exists. But ask yourself a question. How did we do so well before white folks decided to give us a break from affirmative action? In the 60s or 70s, how did Howard University get there? How did the Tuskegee get there? How do we manage to survive without the great white help? Folks, they're only going to help themselves to you. If you compete against them, you will win. If you think you need them, then you're needy. I am not either. I'm successful because I fight for what's mine. Whether you like me or love me, you can still go to step me. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Driver.
Good evening, my name is Ethan. I had a question about something Ms. Driver said. You talked a lot about institutional racism, and in my admittedly short 20 years of life, I've never actually heard a definition for it, because in my view, institutions, whether it be schools, government, your parents, college admissions boards, they're made up of people. People make all of these decisions. So what's the difference between saying we're institutionally racist and everybody hates black people? Because I've never understood the difference. You seem to be, it's just a nice way of making it palatable for the masses without accusing them. What's the difference?
Driver, 2 minutes.
Let me give you an example from the University of Michigan case. One of the things we had to look at in that case was the statement that I made earlier, that test scores, that standardized tests are biased and discriminate against minority students. And one of the things that we found in that case, in the evidence that we presented in court, which was never refuted by the opponents of affirmative action, was that when you looked at a standardized test like the SAT, and you saw how the questions were selected for use on that test, you found that the test makers selected questions that they knew beforehand white students had scored higher on than black and other minority students. In their vast majority, every single question they knew was a white preference question. Now that wasn't just because they were, evil people or something like that. What the test company said was, the test has to norm the same way, year after year after year. And so to get the results that we got when we first designed the test, and it was a racist test then, we have to continue to have the bias built into the test. They've made some measures to try to stop the bias, but it hasn't ended it, because what they've done to redress the problem, and I'll just give you one example, the new SAT. In order to redress the problem of racism, they added a new essay section to the SAT. Everyone knows that English as a second language students are going to do worse on a written essay question. And what it's done is extended and expanded who's going to be discriminated against by that test to include Asian students, Arab students, and other students for whom English is a second language.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Weaver, you have 2 minutes.
Folks, there may be discrimination. The government may discriminate. But if you're going to go to the government to make things better, isn't that sort of like going to the rapist and asking him to treat you kindly? I mean, if you're saying that it's sort of like going to Hitler in World War II and saying, can you treat the Jews a little better? If you're going to fight the problem, you got to fight the person with the problem. The slave on the plantation did not go to master and say, treat us better on the plantation. The slaves left the plantation. It's called leaving the plantation. In my book is that. Leave the plantation. If you think that money is the problem, folks, we are number 4 in the United States in spending per capita per student. Japan is 2,000 less. You see the Japanese are less affluent in education than we are? How about Israel? 4,000 per student. How about United Kingdom? 14th. We're 4th. Are you saying that Britain is less in us education? How about Thailand? 21st. Folks, they spend $1,000 per student. We spend $6,000. It is not the money, it's the guts you have in yourself. And all those schools mentioned, the black inner schools, Hispanic schools, folks, the majority in that community are the same in that school. So that means the black neighborhoods control the Board of Education, they control the vote, and they're still going to master. Folks, they control the board. So if you can't vote for folks to take care of you, then the problem is not the school, the problem is you. And you may not want to face your own responsibility for your children, but the problem is you. If you're voting for the school board president, and you got books that can't read, they're 5 years old, the problem is what you're doing in your school. If you love your children, you'll demand an education, a quality education in those schools, no matter how much money you are spending, because you are paying the taxes. Demand education.
What you said is just a lie. That's the easiest way to respond.
You want to see it? I'm a liar.
We finished with your statement?
You notice, folks, that you got to call me names. You can't defeat what I'm saying because my facts are speaking for themselves. You got to call me names. Woo!
Thank you so much for both coming here. I know that this is a debate, but I'm hoping that maybe we can change the atmosphere a little bit and frame it as a dialogue to actually talk to each other instead of just fighting.
No, ma'am, I don't talk to socialists. I love America too much, so therefore we debate. I'm a liar.
No, I mean, I don't want to throw any, names or anything.
I've been called stupid and a liar.
No. I think both of you are two very intelligent, able people up there speaking, adults.
I'm stupid.
No. Anyway, but thank you for your time and coming here. So my question is, there is a lot of talk around race, but I wonder if the actual question is about class. Because we actually, when America was started in England, they were trying to escape